Hey there, I'm Rachel Ehring, and you're listening to the Top Music Piano Podcast. Get inspired as we discuss creative resources, trends in piano pedagogy, ways to grow your income and streamline your studio, and new ways to engage your students each week. If you are a teacher who wants to go beyond the method books to create an innovative studio that fosters lifelong music makers, you've come to the right place. Hello, piano teachers. I hope that you are doing well today. This episode is airing during one of the busier times of the year for many of us. Currently, I am planning for our spring recitals and everything that goes along with that, as well as enrolling students for summer. And as I think about summer, starting to plan for the fall and what next year is going to look like. But today we're going to take a detour from all of those busy things and talk about another topic that I'm passionate about, and that is, can preschoolers learn to play the piano, and should we be encouraging them to do so? Spoiler alert, yes, I believe they can learn to play the piano, but if that makes you cringe a little, I hope you will hear me out because I have a lot more thoughts on the subject. And speaking of cringe, we have all seen the YouTube videos of the teeny tiny child prodigies playing Mozart or Chopin before their feet can even touch the floor. And I want to assure you that that is not what I'm promoting today when I talk about preschoolers playing the piano. First of all, I will tell you that my view on this topic has actually changed in recent years. A few years ago, if you had asked me if a preschooler should take piano lessons, I would have recommended a general music class like Music Garden or Kinder Music. And I still believe that those are great and are so valuable for exposing students to music at a young age. But we are, after all, piano teachers, and the idea of singing and dancing with a group of 23-year-olds might not be something that gets you excited, and I totally understand that. So today I'm going to give you another option for kids in that 3 to 5 age range. A couple of years ago, I actually was interested in teaching some of those group preschool general music classes, because I know how beneficial it is to expose toddlers and preschoolers to music at a young age. And then my friend Amy Elmore told me that she teaches group piano to preschoolers. I was intrigued by the concept, so I started doing some research to see what resources are available and if other teachers are doing something similar. It turns out that there are some really great resources for teaching these young students. So today I want to share some of those resources with you, along with my thoughts and experiences around teaching preschoolers. First of all, before we get into that, I want to address the skeptics in the room who might believe that kids should be 6 or 7 when they start piano lessons. I see teachers in the Facebook groups who say they won't teach any students under age 7, or that kids need to be a certain age or be able to read before they start lessons. If I were having a conversation with those teachers, I would want to tell them of the many incredible benefits to kids starting piano at any age. The benefits are very similar to the benefits of a general music class for preschoolers. In fact, when I think of preschool piano lessons, whether in a group or individual, I think of it as a music lesson that happens to use the piano as a part of the bigger lesson. There's so much to explore about music with this age, from rhythm to movement and singing, high and low, right and left, and loud and soft. Research shows that music promotes neurological development, memory, sequencing, and motor skills, along with many other things. If we know the benefits, why are we still hesitant to teach preschoolers? I think there are a couple of reasons. One is that they are tiny. They physically can't sit at the piano the same way that an older student can, and we need to use different techniques and approaches for them to physically play the piano. Their feet aren't going to touch the floor, and they are likely going to be playing with one finger, or as Piano Adventures calls it, a 3-1 donut, for quite a while until they grow into the piano. You're probably going to need to get a little stool to go under their feet so that they aren't sliding down off the bench trying to reach the pedals, and you might need some carpet squares or a thick book for them to sit on. They also have a much shorter attention span than older students. So sitting on the piano bench looking at a book for 30 minutes probably is not going to be an option. So the bottom line is, if you have only taught students ages 7 and up, you're going to be challenged as a teacher to approach lessons in a whole new way if you decide to take on some preschoolers. You will have to change your expectations of yourself, and you'll definitely have to change your expectations of your students. And we're going to talk a little more about those expectations in a minute. But the benefits of starting piano at a young age are going to be so worth the discomfort that you might feel in those first few lessons. And let me tell you that once you get past that initial discomfort, you're going to have so much fun teaching these little ones. My 5-year-old student, who I started teaching when he was in preschool, comes bounding into his piano lessons each week with the biggest smile on his face. The excitement that preschoolers show over the smallest things, like playing a drum or getting a sticker, is contagious, and it will brighten your day to spend time with them. I want to get into some of the things that I've found work really well with this age group. Like I mentioned, they have a short attention span, and they are all about play and movement. So rather than working our tails off to try and keep their attention, you're going to want to lean into that interest in play and movement. There are 2 things that you should know about preschoolers. They are easily amused, and they are happy to do the same thing over and over if they enjoy it. And these 2 things actually make our job much easier. I love how easily amused kids are. You can make a silly face or use an animal as an illustration, and they will roll on the floor laughing. Don't be afraid to be goofy and ridiculous in these lessons. And the more goofy you are, not only will the kids love it, but their parents will see that you're invested in their child, and they will keep coming back. And then the fact that they like to do things over and over definitely works to our benefit as piano teachers. We all know the power of repetition in learning piano. So when you find an activity that the child likes, don't feel bad about using it over and over. I have a kindergarten student right now who asks for the same game every single week. If you listened to last week's episode, you know which game I'm talking about. In his very first or second lesson, I pulled out the Will You Play With Me song from my first Piano Adventures book. And after that, he asked for that song almost every week for months. And he was learning so much about black notes and white notes, short and long, and so on. So we kept playing that song over and over, and he got better and better at it. Since I mentioned my first Piano Adventures, let's talk about method books and curriculums for this age. If you are a Top Music Pro member, which you should be, you might have seen Nicola Canton's Notebook Beginner's Preschool course inside the membership. If I were teaching a preschooler for the first time, I think this is what I would use to get started. In fact, I did use many of Nicola's resources when I started teaching this age. So the course in Top Music Pro has video lessons that guide you, as well as a workbook with lesson plans and audio backing tracks. It's really well done, and it's obvious that Nicola understands the developmental stages of students this age, which is really important. But there are some other options as well. Wonder Keys is a popular option with many teachers. Full disclosure, I haven't used Wonder Keys myself, but it's supposed to be for kids as young as age 3. So if you have really young preschoolers that you want to teach, this would definitely be worth checking out. Another popular method is the Piano Safari Friends books. I know a lot of teachers really love using Piano Safari. And if you're already using Piano Safari in your studio, Piano Safari Friends would be a great choice for you to use with younger students. If you aren't familiar with Piano Safari, there's a little bit of a learning curve with it. And one of the downsides is that many of the pieces are follow the leader, where the student copies the teacher. So these are harder for students to practice at home. Personally, I like using Piano Safari Friends as a supplement in lessons for my preschoolers. We'll do some of the rote copycat songs in the lessons, but I usually don't send them home with the student. Another curriculum that I also haven't used, but I'm interested to learn more about, is Kitty Keys. If you listened to the podcast 2 weeks ago, I talked to Jennifer Eklund about Piano Pronto, and they sell the Kitty Keys materials on their website. Even though I haven't used Kitty Keys, I like the Piano Pronto books, and I know that Jennifer is committed to having high quality products on her website. So it's definitely worth looking into if you're looking for a done-for-you preschool curriculum. Kitty Keys is designed for ages 2.5 to 5 and can be used for group or private lessons. And then they have Kitty Keys and Company, which is designed for even younger kids with the option of offering family classes. So this curriculum gives you a lot of options depending on how you want to run your studio. Currently, I'm using Music Tree with my kindergarten student. And I would say Music Tree is for the older preschoolers, like closer to age 5. Before we switched to that one, the student was using My First Piano Adventures, and then I was supplementing with some of the other materials that I mentioned, such as Nicolette Canton's resources and the Piano Safari Friends. I'm sure that there are other curriculums that are good for this age group, and I would love to hear from you if you have found a book or curriculum that you think works well for this age. Before I leave the topic of materials, I do want to shout out my friend Amy Elmore, who I mentioned at the beginning of this episode as the one who first got me thinking about preschool piano, because I just recently finished going through her Preschool Group Piano Blueprint online course. So an online course for teachers who are considering teaching preschool group classes. And inside the course, she offers a framework for you to create your own lesson plans for preschoolers, but she also provides done-for-you lesson plans for 12 weeks of a preschool group class, and those could be also modified for individual lessons as well. If you're interested in learning from Amy, I believe she's planning to launch the preschool group course again during the summer. So you can reach out to her. You can find her on Instagram and learn more about that. And I also want to acknowledge that some of the content I'm sharing with you today stems from what I learned from Amy inside of her digital course. I already mentioned a few of the benefits of learning music for brain development, motor skills, and memory. But when it comes to piano specifically, there is so much that preschoolers can gain from starting early. And so I want to share a few of the things that I've noticed in lessons. One of these is that the preschoolers that I've taught are typically not shy about singing. I teach one little boy who I've taught for about 1.5 years now, and one of the greatest developments that I've seen in him is his ability to sing in tune, match pitch, and I can tell that his ear is developing well beyond even where his fingers are and what he's able to do with his fingers right now. He's also at a point now that he's in kindergarten where he is getting pretty good at reading, and he will often read the words of the songs while he's singing and playing the notes. Now, I am not a neuroscientist, obviously, but I know that that has to be so good for his development to be reading words, singing, and playing and hearing the notes on the piano all at the same time. And he just naturally matches pitch, or he'll hear that the pitch isn't matching, and then he knows that something's not right. Either he's singing a different note or he's playing a different note. So it's been so fun to see him develop those skills in the past 1.5 years. Piano lessons are also great for developing a host of non-musical skills, such as focus and following directions. If you are teaching preschoolers in a group, they are going to learn about sharing, taking turns, being gentle with the instruments. Well, even in private lessons, they have to learn to be gentle with the instruments and showing kindness to each other. If you decide to teach preschoolers, I want to give you a word of caution that you're going to have to adjust your expectations. I mentioned this a little earlier. This was one of the biggest lessons that I learned when I started teaching younger students. They are going to learn at a very different pace than even a first grade beginner. You're going to repeat the same concepts many times before they master them. And even after 1 year of lessons, they might not be able to read notes on the staff or play a song from traditional sheet music. But personally, I'm okay with that because of all the benefits that I've already mentioned. But you also might need to help the parents with their expectations. So let them know that lessons at this age are going to be different, but then also share with them the many benefits that their child is going to have from piano lessons at this age. The child is most likely not going to be able to practice independently at home, so the parent is going to have to be more involved in practicing than they would be with an older student. Or if you're teaching a group, you might not even have a practice requirement for this age. But if you do want the child to practice at home and the parent has no musical background, they might need to sit in on the lessons so that they know how to help the child practice. And you can be creative about the assignments that you send home. Sometimes I'll make a little video for the parent showing them exactly how the song goes so that they can help their child practice. There are also online tools that you can use. If you decide to use the Faber My First Piano Adventures book, there's an app with the backing tracks that parents can download so the child can play along with the songs. Even if you aren't using that book for the lessons, there are a few great songs that I tend to use over and over. I love the Monster Bus Driver to work on rhythms, the music alphabet song, and I already mentioned Will You Play? When I came back to teaching piano a few years ago, I was looking for some creative supplements to the lesson books, and I came across Tim Topham's Improv Power Pack. I'm pretty sure you can still buy it for around $10, and it is so worth the money. Or if you're a Top Music Pro member, you can find it for free inside the membership. I use it to play duets with my students of all ages, but a couple of them are especially good for beginners. There's an accompaniment where the student improvs on groups of 2 black keys, one for groups of 3 black keys, and one for any black note, as well as a couple for white note ones. So you can use these in the very first lessons when you're teaching black notes and white notes. You can use that one where they play any black note, and all you have to tell them is play any black note, and I'm going to play a little duet with you. There are also backing tracks available, so your students can do improv activities at home. I know I've talked about this before, but I have to mention again that I love using stories with this age group. My very first episode for the Top Music Piano podcast was all about using stories in piano lessons, so be sure to check out that episode if you haven't already listened to it. I've created some sound effects stories for beginners, which are perfect for this age, where you can just print the PDF story or you can read it off your computer or tablet if you're not able to print it. And then you read it out loud and there are directions for your students to follow. So there's several of these stories in my Etsy shop, but I also have a free one that is available about Wendell the whale. So we'll put that link in the show notes so you can get the free story. And this one is about a whale who likes to make up excuses for getting out of tasks. And it has instructions throughout for students to create sound effects. And then at the end, there's instructions for the student to play Ds all over the piano. So I think the D is probably the easiest for students to recognize between the 2 black notes. So, and you can, of course, help them if they haven't learned a D yet. You, of course, can also make up your own little stories about animals, rocket ships, whatever, or have the student make up a story and an improvisation at the piano. Remember, the kid's primary job is to play. So it is up to us as their teacher to create play-based activities to encourage their music learning. Now, I want to say, if that sounds exhausting to you, maybe preschoolers aren't going to be your wheelhouse, and that's okay. But if creating play-based activities and lesson plans sounds invigorating and fun to you, then I encourage you to challenge yourself to teach a young student and discover how much fun it is. Our good friend Mr. Rogers is quoted as saying, "Play gives children a chance to practice what they are learning." And that's what we do in these piano lessons. Personally, I love teaching the little ones. They have so much joy and excitement for life. And if you meet them where they are, I guarantee that they are going to teach you as much as you teach them. I really hope that this episode has been helpful for you and perhaps has challenged you to think about teaching an age range that perhaps you haven't considered before. Check out the resources that I mentioned by going to topmusic.co/piano15 because this is episode 15. You can find the link to get your free sound effects story, and you'll find all the other links there as well. There is also still time to register for Tim's free webinar on teaching pop songs to various levels that is coming up on May 9th or 10th, depending on where you are located in the world. You can get all of the information at topmusic.co/webinar, and I hope to see you there. That's all for this week. I hope you will join me again next week when I'll be talking with Top Music's own Rebecca Stewart about teaching beginners. I'm really looking forward to talking with her, and I'm sure we are all going to learn so much. I'm Rachel Ehring, and this is the Top Music Piano Podcast. I will talk to you again very soon.
How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support, and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today.